The invitation came like a peace offering, a cheerful text from his mother with a string of exclamation points about Sunday dinner, roast chicken, and finally getting to know me properly. I am a woman who believes in showing up even when my stomach is unsure. So I baked a lemon cake, tied a ribbon around the pan, and told myself to breathe. My boyfriend, Daniel, squeezed my hand on the drive and said it would be fine. He has the hopeful confidence of a person who was loved loudly at the table he grew up at. I wanted to borrow that confidence for a night. The house smelled like herbs and warm bread, and every surface gleamed. His mother met us at the door with air kisses that never quite landed. She said I looked even prettier in person, which felt like a compliment with a mirror attached. In the kitchen, 3 casseroles rested like trophies. She narrated their history as if I were an interviewer collecting an archive, a recipe from her mother, a trick she learned in Tuscany, a glaze people begged her to make for weddings. I offered to help, and she put a towel in my hands and asked me to polish the water spots off the wine glasses. I watched my clean reflection wobble in each bowl of glass and felt the night tilt a degree toward performance. We sat in the dining room with its careful flowers and old photographs, and I pictured younger versions of Daniel at this table, boy shoulders and bright eyes, and I felt both close to him and very far away. When his aunt arrived, she hugged me and said, "So you are the girl." And I smiled because there is not much else to do with a sentence like that. The place cards were hand-lettered, a small flourish beside each name. Mine said my first name and nothing else. Daniel's card had his full name and a tiny heart doodled in the corner. It could have been nothing. It felt like a clue in a room that did not want me to say the word clue. I told myself a story about kindness, about people doing their best with the tools they have. I held on to that story until the doorbell rang again and everything inside the room shifted, almost invisibly, toward something I did not want to name. She walked in with a bright bouquet and a dress that matched the table runner, which could have been coincidence if I believed in coincidence inside a house this curated. His mother lit up, brighter than she had been all evening, and said in a tone that tried to sound casual, "Look who could make it after all. This is Emily," she added, "the daughter of an old friend, just back in town, such a lovely girl." Emily put the bouquet in my hands, not his, and smiled at me with a warmth that made it hard to dislike her. No one had mentioned another guest. Daniel looked at his mother, then at me, and his smile lagged a beat behind his face. We shifted chairs to make room, and somehow the new place ended up beside him. His mother said she thought it would be nice for Daniel to catch up with someone who knows our town's heartbeat. She asked Emily a dozen questions with answers already curled at the edges. Favorite teachers, summer camps they might have attended at the same time, the ice cream shop that closed before I moved here. Every memory had a place set at the table and I was not in any of them. When we passed the bread, his mother leaned across me to offer the basket to Emily first. When I reached for the gravy, she said, "Careful, dear," and steadied the boat as if I were new to hands. She asked Daniel about his job and turned to Emily to say he always needed someone who understands how demanding his work can be. The sentence hung between them like a ribbon and I watched him try to cut it with a laugh that did not quite work. I asked Emily about her life and she was gracious and quick. A person who can land in any room and find the angle that catches light. I could not blame her for being invited. I could not blame her for being kind. I could feel the architecture of the evening pressing its weight against my ribs. After dinner, in the kitchen, I heard his mother say, "Daniel, darling, take Emily to see the garden." And I watched him freeze for a heartbeat. It caught between the woman who named him and the woman who knows how he takes his coffee. He said he would rather help clear plates. His mother smiled tight and said there is time for both. By the next morning, the glow of the dining room had soured in my head into a film I could not stop replaying. I told myself I was overreacting, that grace should be measured in hours, not seconds. And still my phone buzzed with a photo his mother posted, a shot of the table where the frame cut me in half and put Emily fully in the center. The caption was a paragraph about old friends and new beginnings and small towns that hold their own. The comments filled with hearts from family friends I have not met. Someone wrote finally and added 3 clinking glass emojis. My chest went cold in the way that makes speech a chore. Daniel texted that he was sorry if the night felt weird, that he would talk to his mother, that he thought it was a misunderstanding. I wanted to believe misunderstanding was elastic enough to cover a place card, a curated guest, and a photo that edited my body out of the story. At noon, his aunt messaged me privately to ask if I was okay and then, in the next bubble, wrote that his mother has a way of thinking she knows best, and that I should not take it personally. Not taking things personally might be the hardest unpaid job on earth. When I called my sister and gave her the short version, she made a noise that sounded like a laugh trying not to be a scream. She told me to breathe and to ask for facts. When I arrived at Daniel's apartment that evening, he looked like a man who had spent the day rehearsing. He said his mother did not mean anything by it. He said Emily is a family friend. He said I know what we are. I said I do too, but I would like your mother to know it as well. He said he would handle it, and I watched the boy inside him square his shoulders to walk into a house where love looks like a list. I waited in the car while he went in because the fight belonged to him and the witness would only make it worse. He came back out with apologies on his mouth and a small, thin anger in his jaw that I had not seen before. He said his mother insisted she had done nothing wrong. She said she will invite whoever she wishes to her table. She said if our relationship is strong, it should not be threatened by one lovely guest. The sentence was a trick. I could feel the trapdoor beneath it. At home, I made tea and sat on the floor and stared at my shoes and thought about what a relationship owes itself when a parent presses down. Days became a small theater of gestures. His mother sent him links to events she said Emily might enjoy if he had time to show her around town. She texted him a photo of a concert poster with 2 tickets and a line about support. When he did not answer, she texted me a recipe for lemon cake with a note that said next time try this glaze. I breathed in, counted to 10, and called her. I chose a calm voice, because I wanted to be a person who could find the softest possible path through a hard thing. I thanked her for dinner. I said I am committed to your son and he is committed to me. I said I felt uncomfortable being surprised by another guest with the spotlight anywhere but on the invitation as written. She laughed, the quick high sound people use when they want to move a scene along, and said, "Oh honey, men need options, and it is healthy to remember he has them." The sentence landed like ice water. I said options is a word for brunch. I said we are not shopping. She said do not be dramatic. She said I am protecting my child from patterns I can see because I am his mother. She did not say what pattern she thought she saw. She did not need to. The air between us filled with the shape of women she thought did not measure up. After we hung up, my phone chimed with a screenshot from a cousin of his who loves me enough to be disloyal. It was a text chain in a family group I am not in, full of praise for Emily's poise, a link to her resume, and a comment from his mother about how lovely it would be to bring Daniel back into the fold with someone who understands their circle. A photo sat in the middle of the thread, the one from dinner, and my body, halved by a frame, was not mistaken. It was a choice. I showed Daniel. He went pale and then red in fast sequence and said this is not who I want my mother to be. He asked if I would meet with her and his aunt and him at the house, a 4 chairs and facts sort of meeting. I said yes. I printed the text chain. I printed the event links. I printed the recipe message because it felt like a petty thing with a sharp edge. I slept badly and dreamed I was at a table where all the forks were the wrong size. We sat at the long table without the candles. His aunt brought a plate of cookies and eyes that said she knew storms and knew there was nothing for it but to put down a tarp and wait it out. His mother looked tired and beautiful, like women who carry their pride in perfect posture. I began because I did not want to watch Daniel bleed in front of me without stepping into the frame. I said I love your son. I said I want to be respectful of you and also clear. I slid the stack across the table and said this is what the last few days have felt like from my side. His mother picked up the first page, skimmed, and smiled in that way that says I know something you do not. She said you young women collect receipts like trophies. I said transparency is not a trophy. It is a map. She said the map you should follow is the one drawn by women who have kept families together through harder things than a dinner table. I said families built on secret competitions do not stay together. They calcify around winners and exiles. She looked at Daniel then, the only person she ever needs to persuade. He stared back, steady. He said I am with her. He said I cannot build a life where you audition other women for my part. The room went very still. She said I only asked Emily because I thought she would remind you of what matters. She said when your father left, we learned that good judgment is the only shield. She said the last girl broke your heart. She looked at me as if the memory were my dress. I said I am not the last girl. I said I am not the test you need me to pass to heal from other people. Then, like a small mercy, the doorbell rang. The aunt went to answer it. Emily stood on the porch with a container of soup and a face that looked embarrassed. She said she had come to say she was sorry for the part she played. She said she did not know he was in a serious relationship until after the first texts, and then she did know and did not decline as fast as she should have, because she was flattered. She said she told his mother she was not comfortable being used as an example of anything. The sentence moved through the room like clean air after a long heat. His mother's mouth tightened. The aunt thanked Emily and sent her home gently. I watched a decision form in Daniel's face then, the kind a person makes once and then lives inside for a long time. He said I am stepping back, Mom. He said I will not bring the woman I love into a room where she is treated like a rival. He stood and reached for my hand. His mother said you will regret leaving home. He said I am not leaving home. I am saying home comes with us when we are together if you let it. The days after the meeting felt like a room after a party, quiet with small messes. His mother sent him a long message that said she acted out of love and fear, and that fear can look like control if you paint it in a certain light. She asked for time. He said time is not the same as change. We agreed on a pause with conditions. No more triangulated invitations. No more tests that pretend to be dinners. No more edits that cut people into better stories. He moved some things to my place for a while, not as a declaration, more like a ceasefire with somewhere soft to sleep. His aunt checked in every day with the kind of sentences that only people who have walked the long road know how to write. I cooked simple meals and put my phone face down. The cousin who had sent the screenshots called to apologize for the fallout, and I told her that truth has a way of insisting. At work, I answered emails and drank water and wrote copy about products that promised small improvements to complicated lives. It felt funny to sell ease while measuring out courage at home in teaspoons and tablespoons. On a Saturday, we met his mother in a neutral place, a park with benches that force people to sit side by side instead of across. She said she had started seeing a counselor because her friend told her that repeating old patterns is a great way to keep old pain young. She said she would try to learn where the line is between care and control. She did not say sorry then. She would not use that word yet. She asked if we would consider coming for dinner in a month with no guests and no place cards. Daniel said he needed more time. He said he would like to walk and talk instead. Public places, daylight, witnessed by trees. She looked hurt and then thoughtful. We walked 3 times, short loops. She asked about my work. I told her. She laughed once, and it sounded like a sound she had not made in a while. In the building group chat of her friends, the tone softened. The cousin texted me a different kind of screenshot, one with a line about learning to let grown children choose their own roads. It felt like watching someone take off a tight dress and exhale. We did go back to the house, eventually. Not to sit in a perfect dining room, not to reenact a night that tried to make me smaller, but to help his mother pack a box of old photographs and choose a few for a new set of frames where people are not arranged by rank. She had written us a letter by then. In it, she said I am sorry without wrapping it in the names of other women or the weight of her own history. She wrote that she is afraid when she cannot predict the weather and that trying to control the people she loves makes her feel tall for a day and lonely for a week. She wrote that she would try something new if we would be patient when she forgets and reaches for the old way. I cried at my kitchen table when I read it, and then I made pasta, because food makes sincerity less scary. We decided to rent a small place together, a light-filled apartment with a stubborn window and a view of a tree that throws shade on the sidewalk like a gift. We did not stage anything. We put our mugs on the wrong shelves and laughed and then moved them. His mother came by with a plant and did not rearrange our books. She asked, gently, about our plans for holidays. We said we would split them clean and kind. She nodded like a person learning to share a language. I kept the printed stack in a drawer for a while, not to wave like a flag, but to remind myself that I can say no with a calm voice and an open face and still sleep well. When we finally had dinner at her house again, there were no place cards, no extra guests, no captions waiting to cut someone out. She served roast chicken without a speech. We ate. We talked. When she glanced at me and said, "Will you bring that gravy boat over?" Dear, it sounded like a sentence that had learned how to be ordinary. Later that night, in our apartment, I washed dishes and thought about the way love can be a table with room for repair. There are still days when a text comes late and a ghost of an old fear visits. On those days, Daniel takes my hand and says I am here, and we both look at the door, where there is no line of women auditioning, only a lock we turn together when we are ready for quiet.